Okay. Good evening, everybody. It is 7 o'clock on the dot Central Time, and we still have people streaming in, but we're going to go ahead and get started, and out of respect for everybody's time. So, welcome again if you're returning after the first workshop. Welcome if you're new. My name is Greg Maddox. I'm the Senior Business and Exit Advisor for Cultivate Advisors. A little bit of housekeeping. We have a few of my colleagues on the line as well. So throughout the presentation today, you might hear me talking to David, Matt, or Kyle popping on. They'll be fielding the questions. If you have a question, you could type it into the control panel, has a question section, and our team will be fielding those and sending them to me. For those of you who don't know, Cultivate Advisors is a business advisory firm that's staffed by current and former business owners, and we actually partner with founders and owners who have a strong desire to scale, sell, or passively own their companies, but they want to do it years ahead of schedule. And in the process of doing that, we actually create business owner freedom today and maximum value when it's time to exit. And we do that through structured collaboration with the entire exit planning team of advisors. Now, the purpose of this workshop series is to break down exactly how we accomplish this. We've worked with over thousands of business owners across North America. We've been in the Inc. 5000 4 years in a row for fast growth ourselves. We have hundreds of five-star Google reviews, world-class NPS, Net Promoter Score. Bottom line is that the work that we do to help our business owner clients grow is not theory to us. We actually eat our own cooking. Everything that we do to help our clients, we're actually doing ourselves as we scale our company to an eventual exit. So let's jump into today's content. If I can get the slide advanced. All right. So a quick recap from last week. We covered the three big problems that business owners face. They own a job, or not a business. They have all their financial eggs tied up into the business basket, and in the pursuit of solving that, they end up over-sacrificing on the personal, family, and health front. The three big possibilities that we actually help our clients achieve is that they can actually turn their business into an asset that runs without them and achieve what we call business freedom, and use some of that time and money from the business to invest in liquid and income producing assets separate from the company so they can create financial freedom while they still own the company. And then when they have some time and money, they actually have the ability to have a life separate from the business, to be more, do more, make a bigger impact. We walk through the 9-step exit lifestyle process that shows you exactly how we walk our clients through. And last week we focused on steps 1 and steps 2. Step 1 is discover your freedom point. Step 2 is accelerate your results. So that answers the questions: what would it take for me as a business owner to sustain my lifestyle without my business? And more importantly, what is the business planning required to make that a reality sooner than later? And as we showed last week, most of our clients can hit their freedom point in 3 to 5 years. That doesn't mean they want to sell. It just means that they have the option, and they could exit operationally and still own it, or they could net enough walkaway money that if the market and the time and life was right, they could choose to sell if they wanted to. Today, we're going to focus on step 3, know your business. There's going to be a ton to cover, and so I'm going to be going pretty quickly through it. But if you have questions, you need further clarification, just type it in to the question box in the control panel, and we'll slow down. And you'll have opportunity, by the way, at the end of the presentation, if you want any of the cheat sheets that I cover, you'll have opportunity to raise your hand and get those sent directly to you. Or if you want to set up a time to chat with one of our team members, you'll have the opportunity to do that as well. So let's jump right in. These are the main things we're going to focus on today, all under step 3 of know your business. This is the way a third party would look at you. That could be a lender, an investor, a buyer. And it's important for you to understand how a third party looks at you so that you understand what the true value of your business is, but more importantly, how value is created so that you can create a plan with a team to go and accomplish your goals. So we're going to break it down, talk about the value equation. There's 5 phases of value creation for small business, private business owners. And then at a high level, I'm going to summarize 8 key value drivers. I'm going to give you actionable things that you could do right now to start working towards those 8 key value drivers in your own business. And then to bring it home and help you understand how all of that applies in the real world, I'm going to take you through what I call a tale of two owners. And you'll see a difference between who does the planning and who is still kind of letting the business run them. And finally, we're going to talk about how do you create a plan out of that and who should be on the team to help you. And as I mentioned, you'll have the opportunity to get the cheat sheets if you want, or to set up a time to chat with any one of our team members. So the first thing we're going to jump into is the cheat sheet. So why is it that most business owners do not know really what their business looks like to an outsider? And you'll notice here we have the 3 common struggles and then a really quick 3 steps that we can use right now to approach this. I'd say mostly it's because if you've ever gotten a valuation or something like that done formally in the past, oftentimes the owners tell me they're just confused by the jargon. It isn't really clear. And although it gives them a number that my business is worth X, there's no real clear actionable plan on what do I do with this. So that's number 1. Number 2, owners are often burnt out. They're wearing too many hats working inside their business that they don't have time, unless there's a tax or legal reason for them to get a valuation done, to actually elevate and work on the business a bit. And then when it comes to doing this kind of work, exit planning or just good business strategy is a team sport. And oftentimes clients tell us that they're overwhelmed by the variety of advisors needed because they're the ones who are trying to juggle and manage all of them and have siloed conversations. In our process, we eliminate that and we help them coordinate that and bring in the right people at the right time. And we act as the advocate and the decoder ring for our clients. So how can we actually take a very simple approach to understanding your business? Well, 3 steps. You need to know from a financial analysis, a non-financial analysis, and then value potential. So what do I mean? The way that a third party is going to look at your business, they're going to want to normalize your financials. That means any add backs. They want to see what the profit would really look like if you weren't there. And that shows what they would have, and it gives you a good picture of your financial strength. They're looking for profit gaps, benchmarking you against the competition. They want to take a look at your cash flow and your free cash flow, because that's what's available to them as a return on their investment or to service the debt that they might be using to purchase you. And they'll also take a look at some things like sustainable growth rate, and they'll see with the way that you have the capital structure, the debt and the equity inside your business, how fast could it grow without having to change that. Number 2, the non-financial analysis. Now, this is where the magic is. So this is where deals with the multiples, also the risk in your business. This is the people, process, and systems, and all the intangible assets. So if the financial analysis is a representative of the dollar results that you get, the non-financial analysis is kind of taking a look and seeing what kind of engine have you built that generates those results. And the 3rd step is value potential. So we don't want to just know what your business is worth today. That is a starting point. But we also want to take a look and say, well, what could it be worth if we held the revenue constant, but said, if you did some work, how much more money could it be worth right now? And what latent value is sitting in there? And so that gives you a clear idea of, geez, it might be worth X million right now, but with just some focused work, I can add a 1, 2, or 3 million or more dollars to it. So that gives you an idea for an ROI. If you're going to engage people like Cultivate or work internally with your team to actually grow the company, you'll be able to put a direct dollar ROI to the results that you get. And that's super important. So let's break down the value equation. So we talked last week about the way that small business or private businesses are typically valued. Usually it's profit, but sometimes it's revenue. You have a component of profit times some industry multiple. And most businesses trade somewhere in the 2 to 6 times multiple. There's reasons it could be higher if there's something super special about your company. If you're a strategic acquisition for somebody else, in other words, if a company looks at you and says, geez, if I add you to what I'm already doing, 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2, it could equal 3, 5, 10 or more. And so, but most companies are somewhere in that 2 to 6. But if you think about that revenue/profit component, that is the financial analysis. The industry multiple, that's the non-financial, people, process, systems. The really big gains you get are on moving the multiples up. Yes, we should shore up our financials and get to, best in class if we can, but usually that might be a few percentage points that you can move the profit margin up. Where we can get big gains is when we start moving the multiples up. So as I mentioned before, the financial part is just the dollar result that you get. The non-financial is the engine that creates that result. Now, a third party, the reason they're going to do this analysis is they're going to say, well, what is the risk of that financial result continuing after the owner leaves? And if you think, if you're not planning on leaving anytime soon, what happens if you're not there? You're just on vacation, or you're not working in the business as much as you currently are. And so the more you need to be there to make it happen, the riskier it is for you and for a third party to buy it. And so what that means is if there's more risk, there's a lower multiple. So that means ultimately a lower payout. Most small businesses are not sellable at all. And if this work is not done ahead of time, you might find that there's low or no value by the time you exit, after you have to cover taxes, fees, debt payoff, etc., and whatever your percentage ownership is. So the good news is, we help our clients figure this stuff out years in advance when there's plenty of time to work through it and create some great strategic targets. So let's talk about, if you're going to create wealth and value through your business, what are the stages or phases you have to go through to do that? It's pretty self-explanatory. You can see on the stairs steps on the right, identify, protect, build, harvest, manage. So let me walk you through those. So when we use our Freedom Point calculator on the front end to understand, hey, what is that target sales price? What is your Freedom Point when your business is worth X? So now we have a target. We need to grow the business to X million dollars, to your Freedom Point value. Well, in order to create a plan to get you from here to there, we have to figure out where here is, and that's what this whole step's about. We have to identify what your business, the financial, non-financial deep dive analysis on the business right now. Once we have that in place, then we can create a very detailed roadmap, which includes the protect phase. And we have that baked into our 9-step process as well. That's phase 2. But it doesn't make a lot of sense. This is where you start working with your tax, legal, wealth managers, and there's certain things inside the business for key person risk, et cetera, that are addressed. Think of this as just buttoning up the level of planning that successful entrepreneurs need to have just in place. And if you're a successful entrepreneur, you need a different level of tax, legal, and wealth management than typical, even successful employees have. And it doesn't make a lot of sense for us to spend a lot of time, energy, money growing the value of your company if life can throw you a curveball and wipe out some, if not all, of the wealth that you've already created. So it's critical that on the front end, once we identify what you got, let's work with your team so that make sure that you are protected and buttoned up as well as you can be. Then we can move quickly into step 3, which is build wealth. And that's where we start working on people, process, systems to grow revenue, grow profit, and more importantly, grow value by doing the things that decrease risk and increase the multiple. Now, oftentimes people think of phase 4, harvest, as the ultimate exit. At the end, when I sell, then I will harvest my wealth. That is true. That is one area that you could do it. But we coach our clients to harvest multiple times along the way while they still own it. Your business, if you reframe your business as just a big wealth creation tool for yourself, yes, you have to do good work. Yes, you have to treat your people right. Yes, you need to make an impact. That's all the stuff that you need to do just to be in business. But if we have a strong and healthy cash flow, then there are different things that you could do to separate wealth along the way. I have several clients putting multiple 6 figures into their retirement accounts while they're also investing in other things while they still grow the company. And so once you start harvesting, you're going to need to have a team that's helping you manage. So that could be your tax, legal, estate planning, wealth managers, et cetera. They create a system for you that as you pull money out of your business and start funding that, or you ultimately sell and get a big lump sum payday, that you want to have the plan ahead of time about what you're going to do with that. And more importantly, what are you going to do next? What's the next chapter look like? So those 5 phases seems fairly simple, but most people don't really purposefully walk through it. We make sure that that happens for you automatically when you're working with us. So identify, protect, build, harvest along the way and at the end, and manage along the way and for what's next. So now that we know the phases of creating it, how do we create value inside of the business? There are a lot of different ways to do this. There's lots of different methodologies out there. Um, the purpose today is not to make you guys experts in any of this. So I've broken it down in a very simple format to help you just understand some key value drivers. And I frame it in a way that will make sense for you. And each of these 8, I'm going to walk through and I'm going to give you some actionable things you could do right now. So this would be a good time to take out a piece of paper and take some notes. And if you have questions, just type them into the chat box. So the first value driver is financial performance. Think about this as, professionalizing your bookkeeping and accounting, knowing your numbers, profit margins, costs, using financial reports and other operating reports for data-based decision making. Do you have dashboards? Do you have historical records where you have budgets and projections? Are you tracking plan versus actual? Can you prove to me as a potential buyer or investor, if you're giving me a projection out into the future from the day that I'm thinking about buying it, can I look backwards and see how good you are at hitting your projections? These are the types of things that we help you build dashboards and so that you actually have this and we have that information. It helps you run a much better business, make way better decisions, and you stop managing your business out of the checkbook, out of your bank account, and start using reports. It allows you to start stepping back a little bit, maintain control, but not have to be the one who's on top of absolutely everything inside the business. Value driver number 2, growth potential. Big takeaway here, guys, is that a buyer will pay more for businesses that have a big upside. Why is that? Well, a bigger future equals bigger value for you and for the future owner. If we go back to the value equation, if I'm doing the work to de-risk the business and increase my multiples, but I'm also growing revenue and profit over time. Now I have a higher number, higher multiple, times a higher profit. And so that has a much higher valuation for you. That's also how we help people accelerate hitting the freedom point. That's why we could do it in 3 to 5 years, because we have a track record of growing not only top and bottom line revenue for our clients, but we know that we're moving the needle on increasing the multiples because we're de-risking. In other words, we're just helping eliminate the owner from being the bottleneck on everything and turn it more into an asset that runs without them instead of the business running them. So growth potential is huge. Think about, what are the different ways that you could grow? Could you replicate your business in another city, in another state, in another region? What other products or services would your most loyal customers want to buy from you? Could you license your products or services, to others for a royalty? Could you reach new customers if you opened up a new channel? That could be, phone sales, digital, e-commerce, partnerships, etc. Or could you perhaps more profitably serve your smaller clients with some kind of a DIY self-serve model? This is where you get creative. Hopefully you've got people you can bounce these types of ideas on and come up with a strategic plan. This is a lot of the work that we do with our clients is thinking through this. But growth is critical. Number 3, over concentration. So normally when people think about the concentration, they think about customer concentration. And that's true. That is a big, big problem. We have some clients who are working to solve that. It's great. They land a huge 7-figure contract and a multi-year 7-figure contract with one client, which is awesome and certainly helps with cash flow and covering overhead and having some predictability of income. But when that is a huge percentage of the overall revenue, this is a red flag. So the good news is we have multiple years to go solve and decrease the percentage that one contract represents. So you might not have that kind of a thing, but you might want to look at, could losing a big client tank your business? But the 2 other areas that a lot of people don't think about is suppliers and employees. So think about suppliers. If you have your main supplies come through 1 or 2 key suppliers, you're really at their mercy. So some questions to think about is, how easy would it be for you to replace your most important external supplier? If your business is dependent on 1 or 2, if you spread it out a little bit, even if you might get similar or not exactly the same discounts, just to have more options, could that be helpful? Especially if you think about now with supply chain issues, and people are all chasing to get their supplies and their parts in, depending on the type of work that you do. Is there anything you can do to cultivate a bench of suppliers so you're not beholden to just one? The big takeaway is that sometimes independence or neutrality is worth more than a few dollars of savings. So just something to think about there. On the employee front, you might be the key employee, but I'm sure you might also have one or two others that if they left, it would be a big hole. Now, the flip side of that is they probably know how much leverage they have, and they could use that to negotiate. And so it could be really big dollars to keep them. Yes, you want to pay them fairly, but you also want to put yourself in a spot where you're not so reliant on one person that if they were to leave, you would have a major challenge. So what are some things that we could do? So how easy would it be to replace your most important person? Maybe think about in sales or marketing, or maybe in product development. Are you too reliant on any one key employee? What could you do to cross-train people? What we can do to create a bench of folks? Are we good at recruiting? What are we doing to cultivate those relationships so that when you're ready, you're not starting from scratch? Thing you could do for your customers, a simple thing is rank your customers by percentage of overall revenue and just see what your top handful, what percentage of your overall revenue do they represent? And if that's an issue, typically you look at about 15%. You don't want any one client to be too much more than 15%. That's where the buyers and investors start raising a red flag and devaluing or perhaps passing altogether on your company. Number 4, speed of cash. So what do I mean by speed of cash? So the more cash a buyer has to inject in your company, the less they're going to pay. And by the way, spoiler alert, the opposite is also true. So the goal is to create a business that accumulates cash as it grows. And do you often feel like you're robbing Peter to pay Paul? Are you always chasing accounts receivable to get people to pay you? That could be that's the way that industry is, or could we change some of our internal processes to help fix that? So could you get your customers to pay you sooner? Could you lengthen out the time it takes you to pay your expenses a little bit? If you bill in installments, is there a way that you could charge a bigger upfront payment? So I had a client who sold really large machines, and these were six figures, multiple six-figure sales. And when we first started working together, they typically did it in like 4 equal installments. I get a quarter on the front end, and then at certain milestones, you get the other quarter, and the final quarter. What we switched to was a large percentage on the front end, more like 50%, and then 2 more smaller ones, one at a milestone and one at delivery. We just wanted to front load the cash so that they weren't so dependent on waiting to get that money, and they had it in their coffers. And it wasn't a big deal to switch it. The clients didn't seem to care. They offer a great service. There's a lot of work that they did to customize those things, so it made sense. So you got to figure out how to build it into your model. Could you bill before they receive the product or service? We do that at Cultivate. Our clients pay a monthly retainer, and the retainer starts at the beginning of the month, and we have that on autopilot. So if you sell a service, could you do more to productize your offer and make it easier to charge up front? If it's more of a flat fee or hourly kind of thing, could you bundle it up and charge up front rather than charge along the way or at the end with an invoice? Or could you just increase your prices? This is something that most business owners are terrified of, but we have inflation, we have the rising costs in the supply chain. You need to be on top of that. I would say everybody on this call probably could use with just revisiting their pricing and see if they could just increase it. 9 times out of 10, there are very little issues. New clients don't care at all. They just assume that's the normal. Existing clients, if you're being reasonable and you're delivering value with that price increase, they understand what's going on. So you shouldn't be eating all these extra costs. You have to figure out how to get it bundled in to what you're actually charging. Predictable revenue. So not everybody has like a SaaS, software as a service company, where it's a set it and forget it recurring revenue model. But that is one of the biggest factors in determining how valuable your company is how predictable is the cash flow. In other words, if I'm a lender, investor, or buyer, can I look out into the future with high confidence and point to exactly where those future cash flows are coming from? For a lot of clients, the answer is no, but there are some things that we can do. If you have to start from scratch every month and kind of eat what you kill, that's a lot less valuable of a company. So what are some of the things that we might want to do? Here's a good question. What benefits would you have to offer your customers to get them to buy from you a year in advance? How could you get your customers to sign a long-term contract with you? So at Cultivate, we do a 6-month contract. It's billed monthly. It's a 6-month minimum. It's month to month after that. That's one of the ways that we're adding predictable revenue into our model. I also have talked to a lot of people who do manual billing. And so they end up, after the service is rendered, creating invoices, sending them out, and waiting for payment. Some of your clients might just prefer being billed automatically versus manually doing that afterwards. And another thing is, if you have a service of some sort, could you offer a maintenance contract to service, what you sell? The key is get creative. There's probably a way that you could add more predictable revenue to your business model. Number 6, what I call the product/service X factor. So what is it that makes you unique? So Warren Buffett loves to buy whole companies, but those companies have a really deep protective moat around them. And why does he like that? So all of us, there's probably nobody on this call whose business has zero competition. So we all have other people in our industries who do similar work. The key is, it's not that nobody else does it, but nobody does it the way that you do it. How do you package or bundle or present your offering in a way that's so compelling to the community that if they're shopping or they're educating themselves about your products or services, you don't look anything like the competition? That ends up increasing your demand, gives you way more control over the pricing and the profitability and cash flow, and it makes it difficult, if not impossible, for your competitors to actually try to compete at all with you. So if you think about, there's a hierarchy of differentiation. You have at the low end, lots of companies sell our product or services, not a lot of value there. In the middle, it's hard to find another supplier. So, they go with us because it's just difficult to find somebody else. I guess that's okay. It's not ideal. The best place to be, though, is nobody does what we do or how we do it. The key here, though, is just be careful not to water down a great product or service with just, good additional offerings. Could make you less attractive to a strategic buyer. Nobody wants to buy dozens of less attractive products or services that they're never going to use, even if they increase revenue. So, questions to ask yourself: could you bundle products or services to create more value? Is there a layer of service that you can add to a product to help differentiate your offer? Is there a way for you to better brand your product or service? That's called productizing it. Think about what's one thing your customers care most about, and is there a way for you to incorporate that into your offering in a way that they find compelling? Or what's unique about your business? How can you capitalize on that particular quality? Value driver number 7, customer satisfaction. This is one that I think most business owners have a gut whether or not their clients are satisfied with them. You might even do surveys. Lots of people do surveys. What I found, though, is that not everybody is doing what's called an NPS, or Net Promoter Score. So this is the one methodology that has been statistically proven to predict the likelihood a customer will purchase or repurchase or refer you. 2 things that add fuel to the growth of any company. So it's a very simple, if you guys don't know what the Net Promoter Score is, you can see here in blue, in the middle of the screen, it says, it's one question. It says, on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to refer or repurchase, friend or family, that kind of thing. So what's great about this, it's super simple. It's not a long, drawn out response. They don't have to, it takes them 2 seconds to answer that. You could deploy it in 5 minutes with a tool like SurveyMonkey. But because this is a statistically proven methodology, this is something that a buyer will look at and give weight to. They'll give value to the fact if you have been tracking it religiously and show your data. So that's been one of our BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals, is to have world-class NPS. And I forget our exact score, but we're close to 80 on an NPS across our company. And that's been on purpose. And we do that because we know that that means we're doing really good work for our clients. There's really good chance that they're going to stick with us and perhaps refer people to us. But also for lenders, investors, and buyers in the future, it's a way for us to prove that our clients are going to be sticky. And it's a way that more importantly, that lender, investor, or buyer believes, versus if we just had our own random questionnaire that we sent out once a quarter. So I would highly encourage you to, look into it or reach out to us. We'll show you how we do it. But at the bottom line, you do need to have an objective way of regularly measuring your customer satisfaction. And so if the question to ask yourself is, the methodology you use right now, is it recognized? Is it reputable? Will it show a prospective buyer that customers value your product or service in a way that the buyer will agree to? Another thing to think about is, would shortening your survey improve the response rate? And then also, if you are tracking NPS, because it's so widely used, you can start comparing yourself to the competition or best-in-class type companies, which all adds to the value of your company. And our final value driver is owner dependence. So this is, a lot of private business owners have to figure this out. In order to be valuable to somebody else, your business has to be able to succeed and grow without you at the center of all activities. So think about, why is it so hard for business owners to let go? There's a lot of reasons. We talk to hundreds and hundreds of owners, and I hear things like, well, they enjoy staying involved with serving their clients directly. It feels good to solve problems. Happy customers shower you with praise, and it feels great to feel needed. And nobody can do the work as good as me. I hear that a lot. You know the business better than anyone. Training others is hard. It takes time. It costs money. And it's just easier if I just do it. But here's the challenge. The more customers ask for you personally, the harder it's going to be for you to grow. So you will put a ceiling on your time, the amount of time you have available outside of the business, as well as your ability to grow the company, past you. So what can we do to start fixing this? Get out of the break-fix business and go on a vacation. So what I mean by this, the break-fix business, oftentimes we ignore something until it's broken. Someone messed up a process, someone dropped the ball, and there's a client issue. Now we have to go in and fix it. A simple example is a swimming pool company can teach a summer employee with very little industry skill set how to scoop debris out of a pool each week, but they need an expert to come in and replace a pump that overheated due to a clogged drain. So what are the things that you could teach your employees to do that are preventative and gets you out of the break-fix business? And it's way cheaper when you do it this way too. It might seem like, hey, training people is hard, etc. Well, it costs a lot less, and it's a lot easier than waiting till something breaks and have to stop the presses and have you or other key employees jump in to fix something. And number two, go on a vacation. I'm serious about this. I think oftentimes business owners have a hard time leaving. If they do go on vacation, they bring work with them. So what I tell my clients is, at the very least, take evenings and weekends off. If you're not there yet, get there as quickly as you can and make those free days, meaning you're not on your phone, you're not on texting, you're not on email, you're not doing work. Then gradually start taking a half day or a full day midweek where you are disconnected. If the office calls, you don't answer. The goal here is to give you some time away, but also what happens is your team will be forced to start making decisions. And if you're gone for a day or two, or you build it up to a week or two of vacation, nobody can kill the company in a few days. There's nothing that they're going to do that's going to be irreversible. So what it does show you, though, it forces them to step up. And when you come back, it'll be very clear where, a little bit of training needs to go, where you could quickly, oh, that was an issue. Let me show you how to deal with that. So next time you can handle it. So when I have clients start to do this, the first thing that happens is that the employees don't believe that you're actually going to be serious about free days. So they'll keep calling you, they'll keep reaching out because you've always been, the 1-800 answer person, for them. So you got to make the commitment to be unplugged. But what happens is the best ones start making more decisions independently, and it's just amazing how smart people can rise to the occasion if you just give them the chance to show it. And you'll also expose the weak employees that you need to train up or move out. And I think the last thing I'll say here is stop being the answer person. If somebody comes to you with questions all the time, don't immediately jump into the solution. Instead, you ask them something like, well, what would they do if they were in your shoes? You need to get them to start thinking like an owner. That doesn't mean they're going to know everything about your business and not making all the key decisions. But when they come to you, or even to if you have a leadership team, if they come to those leaders, we want to start training these folks so that if they have a challenge, that they have to think it through first and come to you with, here's what I'm thinking, I can go left or I can go right, and you help me think it through versus I'm stuck, fix it for me. That will start developing the leadership and the independent decision making of your team, and that'll be a huge benefit. So how do these actually apply in the real world? We talked about the 5 phases of wealth creation or value creation in a business: identify, protect, grow, harvest, and manage. Then we talked about 8 key value drivers inside of a business and things that you could do there to actually grow value inside of your company on purpose. But how does this actually show up in the world? And so I'm going to walk you through a tale of 2 owners. And as I go through this, I want you to think about, which one are you more like owner 1, or are you more like owner 2? And it might be a bit of a mix mash depending on the scenario. But you feel free to throw that into the chat as well. So owner 1, working a lot of hours, they're in their business, the business defines who they are, don't have a lot of balance when it comes to personal and professional life. They might not have much purpose or vision separate from the company. Owner number 2, though, leads a very balanced life. And they also have, they're focused on doing the work inside the business that motivates them most. So they're probably doing the highest and best use of their time. And so they're more passionate about showing up to work to do that stuff. And oftentimes they will have a defined purpose separate from the business. The business is part of that, but there will be a personal aspect of it too, of what this business is allowing them to be, do, and have in the world outside of the company. Get that there. Now think about your, called structural capital. Think about this as the people, process, and systems. So owner 1, any intellectual property, SOPs, training programs, patents, trademarks, et cetera, none of that is documented. And either it's because it's all in your head, or it's in 1 or 2 key employees' heads, people who know that role, or you're doing that role yourself. Versus owner 2, who's got clear vision, mission, core values, 3-year strategy documented, presented company-wide. The leadership team knows exactly where you're going. You have your processes documented. SOP procedures are easy to find. Supporting documents are connected, and it makes it easy for the team to actually use the tools, as opposed to we have it buried in 20 folders inside of our Google Drive that nobody ever accesses. Customer capital. So with owner 1, typically the strength of those customer relationships are directly with that owner. Oftentimes the owner is the brand. They might be people that know them directly, and that's why those key purchasers do business with them. And so that leads to high customer concentration, and there's a big likelihood that if the owner were to leave, that those relationships might leave too. Versus owner number 2 has got diverse customers, and those customers are engaged and entangled with the rest of the team. So even though they love the owner and they love the brand and everything they've built, they really believe that they're working with the company, and they couldn't live without what the company does for them. And they love the fact that you started this company, but they don't come directly to you to get the help. And so the customers are ultimately attracted to that because they know there's only so much time in the day that you could be there to do things. And that as the company grows, the team needs to step up, and they appreciate that. It actually leads to better service for them. Social capital. Owner number 1, typically the whole company culture is them. They are the brand. They might be well known in the industry, they're well known in the community, but if they exit, the culture is likely to disappear with them. Versus owner number 2, where you actually have a culture and a brand that lives on in your employees. It's the way that the team works together. It's the way that they are able to do the work and problem solve. And the way that they're able to interact with your clients and customers. And so driven by core values, the way that you communicate internally, the way that there's meeting structures, et cetera, that set the rhythm to a performance culture. And that bleeds into the way that teams react and work with the actual clients. Human capital. This is a big one that we see oftentimes, that the owner really feels like they need to be involved and improve basically all company decisions, major or minor. And even if they have a leadership team, whether that's just a team of some supervisors or managers or a formal leadership team, that team struggles to manage the daily operations without the owner around, because the owner is basically taking control of all of it. So there's no room for them to take over and do it for them. Owner number 2, though, has a well-formed executive team, and they have a documented succession plan. The leadership team is empowered and has accountability and authority to make decisions within their lane without the owner, with guardrails. So we're not giving people blank checks, do whatever you want, put us on the hook for $20 million, but you could define inside of each role what their authority is, what the accountability is, and what the guardrails and the bumpers are to allow them to be creative and problem solve and build and grow the company in your absence, but not go off the rails and drive you into a ditch. So how does this end up showing up in business value? Well, I think it's pretty clear that business owner number 1, most of that perceived value is really tied to the owner, not in the business, and there's likely to be not sellable at all. They could be making lots of money. It could be a really well-paying job, but this is not really an asset that runs without them. Owner number 2, though, has figured out how to de-risk the company, just meaning de-risk it from them. More people, process, systems that are in place. And so that leads to a higher valuation and gets them on the path to getting towards best-in-class multiples, which could be a strategic, acquirer comes in, is willing to pay a premium for what they've built. And ultimately on the sales price, as I mentioned, chances are that owner number 1 doesn't really have much of an asset there. So if it does sell, it's likely going to be for very low value, if anything at all. But owner number 2 is really building something, with purpose and with intention to build an asset that gives them business freedom, creates financial freedom, and allows them to have some personal freedom along the way. So when you're doing that, how do you build a plan to make that happen? I'm going to walk you through quickly the way that we do the planning, and then I'm going to talk about who needs to be on the team. And I'm going to focus on 2 or 3 key people that should be on your team, but I will give you the laundry list of the others that will come in and out of your orbit as your needs fluctuate over time. So we follow a 21-step plan that, if you notice, right down the middle there, stage 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we follow that the phases of value creation: identify, protect, maximize, extract, and manage. And we've created a series of projects that have to happen in each of these areas. Some of those have to do with tax, legal, and wealth, and other exit planning, which is just good business strategy combined with good financial, tax, and legal strategy. It's a team sport. And so all of this stuff needs to get accomplished. And so it's not all done directly by the owner. They have folks that come in and help. We do the business advisory, so we're really involved on maximizing value. Extracting has to do more with the transaction that you might have, and then managing is just working with your tax, legal, and wealth team, while you're growing, and then also post, life after. Part of our deep dive analysis, I'm just going to skim this over the top out of respect for everybody's time, but we're going to do a deep dive on the financial front. And we're going to benchmark against competition. We're going to look at your business and your cash flows the way the third party would. We put a lot of different documentation together that I know from experience. Had 5 clients sell last year, 3 of them to very sophisticated buyers. They did the same analysis that we did. So we were prepared ahead of time. The owners knew exactly how they stacked up, and we worked over time to make them stack up even better. So none of it was a surprise. The non-financial scorecard is just a way for us to talk about the people, process, systems, and a way to track our progress against doing this work. Because as we start knocking this work out together with you and your team, it will increase the value of your company, because everything Every time we de-risk it a little bit, that increases the multiple. So yes, revenue and profits going up, but the multiples are going up as well. And we track that as we go so that you've got a very clear picture of exactly what your value is now, but the value potential as well. You know exactly where we're headed. Exit readiness, that just has to do with not everybody wants to leave anytime soon, but your business and you should be exit ready. 50% of owners don't leave of their own volition. There's death, disability, disagreements with partners, disruption in the marketplace. There's all sorts of, Uber comes in and kills your taxi cab company. There's all sorts of things that can happen that force your hand. And so unsolicited phone calls. I have 2 different clients right now who are in conversations that look promising, but cautiously optimistic at this point, with some strategic acquirers who we weren't planning. We had a 2 or 3 year plan before we thought we would go find an M&A professional and go to market. But turns out these folks have been kind of watching my client in the background for 3 years now, and unbeknownst to him, they tapped him on the shoulder. So good thing we've been doing this work, so we were prepared to have this conversation with them and get to a great outcome for the client. So that's all we're talking about here. Begin with the end in mind and do what you can to maximize your readiness. Doing this, by the way, makes the business more fun to run. It's more profitable. You'll have more free time. And you'll be buttoned up on the personal and financial front as well as you do it. And the last thing that we do as part of our deep dive is we talked about the value potential. And here's a snapshot based on a fake client, but this is what it actually looks like inside of our reporting. You can notice here across the top, revenue is held constant. And so in this example, in the left-hand column, the current value is 5.3 million. But that second column is like, well, if we could just, we looked at we benchmarked their financials against the competition, and there was a profit gap. So we were lagging behind the best in class. So that second column and the third column, which equate to resolving the profit gap and best in class financials, that moves us up from 5.3 to almost to 6.5 without changing revenue, just by shoring up our profit gaps. But the big gains are in that fourth column, attractiveness. That's where we start moving the needle on the multiples. And with the same revenue, we move the multiple up, and now instead of being worth 5.3, we're almost 7.8 million. And if this was a strategic opportunity, it could be worth closer to 9. And so we do this on the very front end to see where the client is, and then we start tracking against this as we do work, and we compare this to their freedom point value that we calculate at the very beginning of our initial conversations. And then we put it into a detailed roadmap with due dates and team members who are assigned to doing the tasks. So let's wrap it up here in the last couple minutes with just who needs to be at your table to pull this off. You can see here in the top center, the owner, there's a lot of people at the table. Yes, you'll need a lot of these people in different times over as your business grows and as your circumstances change. But there are 3 main advisors that I think are core to doing the work to really put a strong plan in place. You need a growth consultant, somebody like Cultivate. Call us a value advisor. We're focused on the value of your company. We want to get you to your freedom point as quickly as possible, but we're not siloed. We're looking at this through the lens of business, personal, and financial goals. We're working with those other professionals to make that stuff happen, but we're helping you connect the dots between what the business needs to do in order to pull off your personal, financial, and business goals, because your business is the goose that's laying the golden eggs. And so we basically help you manage and grow your business value so you can have, be more, do more, and make a bigger impact in the areas of life that you care about. You're going to need a financial advisor, and you're going to need a tax attorney. So the caveat here is that wealth managers and tax attorneys are not all created equal. If you think about it, there's just more W-2 employees in the world than there are successful business owners. So if somebody gets into the profession of wealth management or into the profession of tax and estate planning, chances are the vast majority of the training they get is focused on the masses, working with tools and resources that serve the masses, unless they just happen to work for a firm that focuses only on successful business owners like you. So key is to just be able to identify the right folks, because there's a different set of playbooks on the financial, tax, and legal front that could help you make millions or save millions, literally, with the way that you set up things as you grow the company, protect you from frivolous lawsuits, reduce taxes, allow you to build more wealth through the business, and do it in a way that also leads to a seamless transition when you are ready to leave, whether that's through selling to a third party, transitioning to your kids, having the managers buy you out, whatever that looks like for you, or just exit operationally, that if you have the right team in place, that system gets set up years in advance and it's a seamless transition. So the tax attorney / estate planner is also somebody who you need on that team. So quick recap. Today we finished all of phase 1. So last week we talked about steps 1 and 2. Today we dove deep into know your business so you can understand the way a third party, lender, investor, or buyer would look at you. We talked about the value equation, revenue or profit times a multiple, and what raises or lowers that multiple. We talked about the 5 stages of value creation: identify, protect, grow, harvest, manage. We talked about 8 key value drivers and key things you could do in each one to right now you could leave and start implementing inside your business. And then to show you a real world application of those things, we walk through a tale of 2 owners to just show you the difference of someone who's doing that planning, and usually with some help, with a team helping them, versus someone who's not. And next week, if you want to know what advanced tax, legal, and wealth planning looks like, next week our workshop is going to be, I'm going to have Jim Duggan, who is one of the nation's top advanced tax planning attorneys, and who works exclusively with business owners and helping them through this. He works with lots of our clients, and we're going to walk through exactly what this looks like and kind of like the types of work that can be done and the benefits of doing it. So if you ever heard the term advanced planning and want to know, well, what does that really mean? You're going to want to tune in next week, because that's going to be a great one where we actually line up, how do the right advisors, tax, legal, and wealth, how do they help you save literally millions of dollars by getting the planning right? We're going to walk through that next week. So I think to check my clock here, we're just shy of the top of the hour, so it's perfect timing. As I mentioned at the top of the call, if you want to get our cheat sheets, just text cheat sheet 123 to 312-847-3880. It's not case sensitive, guys, but you do have to spell it right. Cheat sheet 123, no spaces. Or if you want to talk to somebody on our team, if you have questions from today that you'd rather have a one-on-one conversation, no cost, no obligation, or for those of you who saw last week's workshop and want us to run your Freedom Point numbers, just text Freedom Point 123 to 312-847-3880, and we'll take care of you. I'm going to check the chat really quick. So I don't see any questions in there. My team will hold on here for a couple minutes for people who might want to raise their hand and ask a question, but we really appreciate if you guys need to get going. We appreciate you carving out some time in your evening to spend with us. We're really excited about helping you understand how you can create business freedom, financial freedom, and personal freedom in your life with a plan, and walking through the rest of these workshops with you over the next couple weeks. So thank you guys very much, and we'll hang out here for another couple minutes for people who might have a question.